Hey everybody, it's Leela from Miss Kreations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's tumbler tutorial is going to be this beautiful unicorn glitter tumbler. Like always, all of my materials and the glitter colors will be posted in my description below. I'll also have a coupon code for the glitter that is shown in this video. All the glitters I use on this tumbler is from Glitter Heart Co. I am using their Opal set, and be sure to watch the entire video because I will be giving away an Opal set to one lucky winner. Good luck to everybody who enters the giveaway, and with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this tumbler. So now I have my tumbler outside with my spray paints. I'm going to be starting with the lightest color first because it's easier to spray over the lighter colors than the lighter colors spray over the darker colors. What I'm going to be doing is just taking the spray paint about 6 inches away from the tumbler and just kind of have a diagonal line. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I just lightly spray painted that tumbler. And I'm just doing it at a diagonal angle. So this is how I create that kind of curve. I just do this slowly and I just kind of line it up. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see how it goes and it kind of comes out here. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just worry about having that full covered tumbler. And for the bottom, all I do is spray this area right here. So I make sure I aim right towards the side of the tumbler and towards the bottom. And I just get some overspray on the bottom like that. So make your lines as thick or as thin as you like. And I'm now going to go in with my second color, which is also a light color. Now I'm just going to start from the top and just kind of follow that light blue spray paint line. And if you notice, I'm not pressing down on the spray paint a lot. I'm just doing small little spurts of spray paint. And if you have the colors overlap, that's okay. I'd rather the colors overlap than have the stainless steel peek through. And then I'm going to do the same on the top or on the bottom of the tumbler. And you see how that overlapped? That's okay. Like I said, I'd rather have that overlap than the stainless steel peek through. And now for my last color, which is going to be my darker color, I'm just going to be spray painting the area where you see the stainless steel. You notice I'm doing very small spurts. You do not want to drench this tumbler with spray paint. You don't want to hold down the spray paint too long. You just small spurts of spray paint, slowly and just one spurt at a time. And then what you can do now is go back in with your light blue and just kind of go over that again. And then I'm going to go in with my light purple and make that purple just a little thicker. So that's the great thing about these spray paints. If you drown the colors out, you can always go in with the color underneath and just go over it like I just did. So this light purple was getting drowned out by the dark purple. I accidentally sprayed more dark purple. I just took my light purple and I just sprayed right over it. And what I'm doing now is just turning the cup and going around, and I'm looking for any spots that might still have the stainless steel. Make sure you're checking the bottom because it looks like on the bottom here I didn't get all the spray paint on the tumbler. So I'm just going to be grabbing a color and just spray painting the bottom. You see I oversprayed the light blue on the purple, so I'm just going to go back in my purple just to cover the light blue. Now that I have my tumbler all spray painted, I do not need to seal this at all. I'm going to bring it in my craft room and let it air dry on my cup turner with the turner off for about 25 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. I have my tumbler on the turner. The spray paint is completely dried. You can see that nice swirl on the cup. For my next step, I'm going to be adding Glitter Heart Co.'s Opal set to this tumbler. I will be adding the glitter using the epoxy method, and like mentioned earlier, I will have this Opal set link in my description below with a coupon code for you to use for your first purchase of Glitter Heart Co. I'm first going to turn on my cup turner and then add the epoxy to my tumbler. I have an amount of 5 milliliters of epoxy in this cup. I'm going to start by turning on my cup turner, then adding epoxy to my tumbler. Now the key to adding this epoxy to the tumbler is you want a very thin amount of epoxy. So what I do is I just stick my gloved finger inside of my epoxy mix and I just add it to the tumbler. The amount of epoxy that I use for this 30-ounce skinny tumbler is going to be about 2 milliliters of epoxy, and it might be just a little bit less than that. So I have mixed 5 milliliters of epoxy total because it's just very hard to mix a small amount of epoxy, at least for me with my heavy hand. So I'll do about 2 or 3 of these cups at a time so I can keep this epoxy so I don't have to waste it. So all I do is I make sure that it is evenly covered on the tumbler. You want to make sure you get every part of this tumbler because I know it's obvious, but as you know, glitter has to stick to the epoxy. So if the epoxy is not on any surface of the tumbler, then the glitter won't stick to that part. Also, another thing that I would always keep in mind when I first started epoxying tumblers, adding the glitter with the epoxy method, is I like to think of this as adhesive. So all this epoxy is doing is making sure that the glitter is going to be sticking to the tumbler. So what that means is I used to spray adhesive on my tumblers and then add my glitter to my tumbler. And if you remember, or if you've ever done that, the adhesive is very, very thin. So try to compare that to spraying the adhesive on your tumbler. A lot of times whenever we put epoxy on the tumbler, we want to put so much epoxy, we want to seal in the design and this and that. But just remember that this is just acting as an adhesive. The epoxy should not be thick. If the epoxy is too thick, then whenever the glitter goes on the epoxy is going to absorb the glitter and kind of drown the glitter, and then you're not going to have that nice sparkle. So if you've ever done a tumbler using the epoxy method with glitter, if you've noticed some areas are very shiny and sparkly and other areas are very dull, that means that the dull areas you've added way too much epoxy, and that shiny area you've added just enough epoxy for that glitter to lay nice and flat on that epoxy. So I'm almost finished with this. I'm just making sure I have all of the epoxy, like I said, covered on the tumbler. And once I'm finished with this step, we'll move on with adding the glitter. Now that I have my epoxy on my tumbler, I always keep my epoxy to the side just in case there's some areas that I can't see that has not been covered with my epoxy. I'm now going to go in with my Opal set, and what I do is I transfer my glitters into Dixie cups. It just allows me to have better control of the glitter. And make sure you have some catch paper down below to catch your glitter. The first color glitter is going to be this beautiful moon mist, and what I'm going to do is just tap the glitter on the tumbler. And what you can do if you are a beginner, you should have a very thin amount of epoxy on this tumbler. So what you can do is turn off your cup turner and just add that glitter diagonally so you don't have to chase your cup turner. And then you can go ahead and turn it on. So it depends on how fast your cup turner is, on how easy you want this done. You can either turn off your cup turner or turn it back on. So it's completely up to you. So what I do is I just make a diagonal line. I go right with the spray paint. I'm not adding each glitter to each color spray paint. I'm just adding the glitter on however way it falls. So if it happens to fall between the purple and that blue like you saw, or the pink and the blue, then that's where it's gonna fall. Sometimes it does fall like this and it kind of spreads out. It's going to turn out beautiful because this is a nice opal tumbler. At the end, everything will come together. For my next color, I'm going to go in with a unicorn farts, and it is a chunky opal. I'm just going to be following that moon mist right along that side. And I'm going to let all that glitter fall. And then I don't like to chase the tumbler. I just let it spin, and then I come back again and I just make the line a little thicker if I want it to be. For my next color, it's going to be Opal. It's kind of a thinner, chunky glitter. I like this cut of glitter. I'm going to be placing that right next to the unicorn farts. And you can see I'm not chasing my tumbler like I mentioned earlier. I'm just letting it flow, and then I add the glitter. And like I said, don't worry about that glitter kind of running away from you or not making that straight line. It's going to overlap each other, the glitters are, and then it's going to look beautiful. So I'm just making that line just a little thicker and finishing up the top here. My next color is going to be Blue Opal. This is also a chunky glitter. I'm going to be placing the Blue Opal right along where the moon mist is going to be. I love the Blue Opal because obviously, like its name, it has that shade of blue in there, and I wanted it on that blue area. So I made sure to pair that behind that, in front of that blue, to make that blue really pop. And I'm just making an absolute mess, but it's okay because, like I said, it's gonna turn out beautiful. So I wanna add a little bit more on there, so I'm just going to let it spin. I'm going to pinch my glitter like I would salt and just add it on here because I sometimes have too much of a heavy hand when it comes to using the Dixie cups. In the last color of the Opal set, we're going to be using White Pearl. This glitter is a very fine glitter, and if you do know anything about Glitter Heart Company, they have a color called Diamonds, and this is the closest I can get to Diamonds if Diamonds is sold out. So I'm just going to be placing White Pearl right next to that chunky glitter here. I believe that's the Moon Mist, yes. I always like to add the chunky next to the fine glitter because it gives it some depth to the tumbler. And then what I do now is I don't clean up my paper for this last one because if you haven't noticed, I haven't done the bottom. So what I'm going to do is basically just fill in the areas that's blank with no glitter with any colors I like. So I've used all the colors of the Opal set, and now I'm just going to go in with each color. And I'm going to let it fall on the catch paper. And then I'm just going to fill in this last area of this purple. And then let's go in with Unicorn Farts because I really, really like that. I'm just gonna add that to the areas that are kind of bare. So you don't have to do that line continuing. Whenever you notice that you're almost finished, you can go ahead and just add those little pieces of glitter. I'm not going to chase my turner. I'm just gonna let it spin and then add those little pieces as it comes around. So I just want to make sure that every area of this tumbler is completely covered with glitter. So let me turn off my tumbler, and then I'm just going to be placing the Unicorn Farts right here and fill that spot in. And then let it spin. And what I like to do is go up to the rim and make sure I have every inch of the rim covered, because a lot of times we forget about the rim or the bottom, so I go around and I just kind of fill that in. And these colors are so similar that if you mix them around a little bit, if you don't know which one's which, that's okay because they're all opal, so it makes that cool little random effect. Now that my tumbler is completely covered with the glitter, I'm going to take that catch paper and kind of mix around all these glitters. This creates a beautiful glitter whenever they're all mixed together. I'm going to be removing my tumbler from its turner, and then I'm going to be placing that cup in the pile of glitter. You can see the bottom, it turns out so pretty. I really like how all the colors mix together. And I'm going to do one last pat off of my tumbler, and you can see the bottom is covered. I'm going to place my turner back on the arm and then turn it on. Now that I have all of my glitter on my cup, this is a very important step. I know a lot of people like to use wax paper or parchment paper. I just like to use my gloved hand. So what I do is I turn off my cup turner and I press down on the tumbler because a lot of these glitters are chunky. So you're going to have a lot of chunky glitters in the spots. So the reason why I'm pressing down on this cup is because I do not like sanding, and if I do have to sand, I don't want to break an elbow and an arm just to sand this cup. So these glitters are very fine, or they're very lightweight, the chunky glitters are, so they're not very heavy to begin with. So when I press them down, they press down pretty easily and they go right on that tumbler. So I go around even the areas that I don't have a lot of chunky glitter, I still press down because there might be some pieces of chunky glitter on those fine areas that you don't see. So I just basically take my hand like you see, and I'm just pressing down. Make sure you're not smushing or smearing because it's going to smear this glitter off. And if you see any stubborn areas, like I see a piece of glitter that just wasn't cut, I just take that right off my tumbler and I go around and I continue to repeat this process. Like I said, a lot of people, they use parchment paper or wax paper. If you use that method and that's what works for you, then so be it. Whichever method makes you feel more comfortable and gets the job done. So once I'm finished with this step, I'm going to be turning my cup turner back on. I'm going to allow my cup to spin on the cup turner for about 2 to 4 hours. After 2 to 4 hours, I'm going to turn off my cup turner, let it air dry or air cure for another hour. So my total drying or air curing time is going to be 5 hours. Once 5 hours is up, I'm going to move on with that next step. Do keep in mind that temperatures, your brand of epoxy, and the humidity is all going to be different from mine. So your drying time may differ from mine. So I'll see y'all with the next step. Welcome back. I'm here with my tumbler. The epoxy is completely cured underneath the glitter. And I do want to mention one thing before I go on with this next step. You can add another coat of epoxy over this tumbler with the epoxy still a little tacky or sticky. So keep that in mind. But adding such a small thin of epoxy in your tumbler, it allows that epoxy to cure or dry faster than if you were adding that thick coat of epoxy. So I just want to show y'all this beautiful tumbler. I love how it has this color changing effect to it. The spray paints underneath that opal glitter just makes this pop so beautifully, and I love the bottom. It gives it that nice shine and that beautiful shimmer. For my next step of this tumbler, I'm going to be sealing this in, so I'm going to be adding epoxy over this glitter. So I do want to let you know I do not spray any like spray sealers or anything on here. The way that I seal in my designs are all with the epoxy. So I'm moving right into epoxying over this glitter. The amount of epoxy I will be using is going to be a total of 30 milliliters of epoxy. That's 15 milliliters part A and 15 milliliters part B, totaling a 30 milliliters of epoxy. Before I mix my epoxy off screen, I'm going to let my tumbler spin on the cup turner, and what I do is I'm looking around on the cup and I'm trying to see any really parts of the cup that might be sticking up. So as you know, I use some chunky glitter. Thankfully, the chunky glitter is very light, so it's not of thick chunky glitter, so it does lay on the tumbler very nicely. But if there's any parts of the tumbler that's peeking up, meaning any glitter that's sticking straight up, what I do is I either take my gloved finger, I either take tweezers, or if you have a spare fingernail clippers, what you can do is clip some of the pieces of the glitter off. So if there's that really stubborn piece of glitter sticking up and down, take a pair of fingernail or toenail clippers and just clip some of those pieces off, just so you can avoid that sanding in the future. So what I do is I just go around and I'm just patting on it. I know this tumbler is completely dried, it's cured, but I still want to pat around the tumbler because I might have missed any of those little stubborn pieces that might be sticking up. And what I do is I kind of rub on the tumbler because it gets off all those little pieces that might be kind of not really stuck down, but it might make me have to sand it in the future if I didn't wipe it off. So you don't want to press down really hard. I'm just doing this very lightly, like I said, just to avoid possibly sanding really hard in the future. I have my epoxy mixed and I'm now just going to apply it to my tumbler. I'm not going to be applying this in any special way. I'm just going to do this like I would any other tumbler. When I'm finished applying my epoxy, I'm going to let my tumbler spin on the cup turner for about 4 to 5 hours. After my cup has spun on the cup turner for about 4 to 5 hours, I'm then going to turn off my cup turner and let my cup turner air dry or air cure for another 20 hours. So I want a total drying or curing time of 24 hours. I like to have that 24 hours cure time because when I go and put on that decal, I want to make sure that I'm placing that decal on a cured tumbler. Do keep in mind your temperature, your humidity, and the brand of epoxy that you use will differ your drying time. So be familiar with your epoxy, check out the instructions, and it just depends on where you are located and how much humidity you have in your craft room. Don't forget to get the bottom of your tumbler. You want to make sure that you're hitting all this glitter on this tumbler because you want your tumbler's glitter to be nice and sealed in. Now that my epoxy's on the tumbler, I'm going to let it spin, air cure, and I'll see y'all soon. Welcome back, everybody. The epoxy on my tumbler is completely dried or air cured, and you can see how nicely this tumbler looks with this glitter. You can still see that spray paint underneath that opal glitter, and it still gives it a nice shine. Of course, with this opal glitter and all of these magical colors, I've decided to call this tumbler a unicorn glittered tumbler. Now that your epoxy is completely cured, go ahead and feel around your tumbler to see if there's any chunky glitter that might have been raised up through the epoxy. I'm going to be using a 220 grit sanding block to sand around the tumbler. Once I'm finished sanding the tumbler, I'll then wipe it back down with a 91% alcohol. After I wipe it down with 91% alcohol, I'll apply my decal. Once my decal has been applied, I'll go ahead and put another coat of epoxy over this tumbler. This being a 30-ounce skinny stainless steel tumbler, I'll probably end up using another 15 to 20 milliliters of epoxy total. I've actually made two of these tumblers. The one that I made before the one I showed y'all, this is a blue color scheme. I will have all of the spray paint colors for this tumbler listed in my description below. The only thing I did differently on this tumbler is whenever I did that coat of epoxy, I added some acrylic paint to the epoxy. So I get this acrylic paint from Joann Fabric. You can also use the Apple Barrel brand from Walmart. Your paint does not have to be a certain finish. You can use a gloss, satin, or matte finish. Adding that acrylic paint gave it kind of a cloudy look or a foggy look. I just wanted to play around with it to see how it will turn out, and I really like the effect that it gave the tumbler. Here are the two tumblers side to side, so you can kind of see the difference between adding the acrylic paint to the blue one and then not acrylic paint to the purple and pink one. Now let's move on to my glitter opal set giveaway from Glitter Heart Company. The way to be entered in this giveaway is to send me a message on my Instagram account or Facebook page at Miss Kiss Kreations. All you have to do is send me the answer to the question that you see on the screen now. I will be announcing the giveaway 2 weeks from today. Good luck to everybody, and like always, thank you so much for following my page and entering in these fun giveaways. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed creating it for y'all, and if you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more Tumbler and craft videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.